Hi, everybody. I wanted to take a few moments to uh, try to answer a few questions about and address a few problems that people have with hair. Um, I don't have time to go through every aspect of hair, but there are a couple of the most important things that I want to talk about right here. And hair is one of those things that you may have drawn what you think is a nice portrait, and yet you're in fear of putting the hair on your portrait because you just can't make it work. There's something about it that just doesn't seem right. And the more you struggle with it, the worse it gets. And I wanted to just show you, two or three tricks and show you some of the principles that can make hair very successful and solve many of the problems and change some of those misconceptions that you may have as you struggle to try and make it read right. The hair is really the same principles. Well, I use the same principles, and you should too, I think, as you would if you were drawing a face or any other object. And yet when we get to the hair, it just doesn't seem like that's the case. We're actually creating problems that can be easily solved, and that's one of the things that I want to be able to address right now. So let's see what we can do with just laying this out so that it makes sense. And one of the main elements, as you've heard me say, if you've followed my lessons and core concepts and the videos, is that one of the core elements is the line that is called the tapered stroke. Now, this comes from holding the pencil, in the way that will help you achieve this, but the ability to land softly and to be able to take off softly creates a line that has a pointed end at each end. It gets lighter. And the one that's a little heavier is usually at the top, but as you practice, you can get it down to where you'll have a lighter end as it lands softly and just makes contact with the paper. And then it makes a little more value here, and then it takes off, and you gradually see it like an airplane lifting off of the tarmac, as I've said many times. Just think about it as coming down and grazing the surface. Well, this happens with the appropriate handling of your pencil. Now, there's a lot of information about this in the core concepts and many of the other videos that I have that might help you be able to understand the mechanics so you can have a precise placement of this line. The better and the more you practice, the better it's going to get. And then you'll be able to have the ability to actually lay these side by side and create contours and what I call edges to value. Having a very clean edge and then showing it fading away so that you can create a gradation and have all kinds of other effects. But what you'll notice is that this line disappeared. And again, this is what I call working with an edge to value. It is rare that a line can ever demonstrate anything except the starting point. When we're drawing hair, believe it or not, we need these lines, but we want to be able to interpret how we place the line and how it's relating to everything beside it so that it actually becomes a space. So when we're drawing hair, yes, we need lines, but we are actually creating what will eventually become spaces between hairs, and we're adding enough graphite to add value to regulate the different values of hair we might be working with. One of the things that you can do is add those lines, and maybe I ought to just go ahead and start over here. We'll go ahead and just add our lines. And the thing about hair is it's extremely forgiving. Now, when I tell people that, they often think, you've got to be kidding me. Every time I put hair on my portrait, it ends up by ruining it. And then I work harder and harder to try and correct the problem, and it gets worse and worse, and I've wasted all the time I have put into my portrait. So it's no wonder that I've seen everything from tears to terrible anxiety to people just not even wanting to put it on and just basically quitting. But you'll notice that as I put these lines on, we're creating spaces. And this is one of the things that is happening when we when we go ahead and create our portraits, and it creates a misconception. I'm going to find a piece of paper here quick so that I can just demonstrate a couple things here. Let's see. Let's go ahead and just use a simple oval for the face here. Now, if I'm going to put hair on here and I start putting these lines, which again can be very, very forgiving, but I'm creating the spaces. If I want to continue, the tapered stroke gives me a wonderful opportunity to keep flowing down into maybe that hair that is going to gather together, but we still have these spaces. What in the world are we going to do with these spaces? And as we may have bangs or whatever we're trying to do, we see these white spaces. Well, one of the things that we need to be able to see for our minds to be able to perceive what we're looking at is everywhere we look, we need to be able to see what's in the distance, what's past something, what's blocking our view. This gives us the idea that there is distance, there is depth, dimension, and all these different things that help us be able to perceive this. But when I am making my strokes and I have these white spaces, well, it just is actually the opposite. I'm actually creating kind of a negative in my mind, because when I see the spaces, I realize that, wow, would it be that bright? It's almost like we're putting hair on a light bulb or something, and we see the light scalp or the light forehead or the light spaces as white. And so there is something that can be a very easy solution to this. And it doesn't make any difference which color of hair you're working with. If you are able to take a few of those spaces and create a darker part. Now we need a clean, sharp line, and that means it's not soft on either side. We want something that has an edge to value so that we can tell that there's an edge. It's very much like this. And we can tell that it's either going around and out of our sight, or this is actually covering this. But we need that clean edge. It never works to do just one line and expect it to give us all the information we need, because this one line, I refer to it is undedicated. And I like to be able to take a look and say, okay, what side is this an edge to a space, or what side is casting a shadow? And I might find that this part right here, this white part, is actually casting a shadow on this side. So I will actually make a gradation like I did here and make it soft on this side to demonstrate a shadow. And now I know that this is a place that we can't see anymore, because this is either covering this or this is going around and out of our sight. Well, hair is the same way, except that in many cases we're going to want two clean edges so that we can look past a space. I mean, we can look at a space and look past the hair. And it's surprising how few of these we have to actually add to our drawing to change the whole perception of what this hair is doing. If I can make a few of these, which is natural because not only are there spaces between hairs and it goes to where it's shaded or darker in between, but it also is going to help us understand that hair gathers. This is just very natural. Hair is going to kind of group together. Might even have, some places where it's going over into other areas here. And now I can say, okay, this is in front of that, and I can create a clean edge here and actually have that being covered up. I no longer see it because I have all this hair in front of it. But anyway, these are clean edges to spaces, and it doesn't take too many. I can pick out a few of those white areas, and I can now put a shade in there, some value that actually lets us know that we're looking down through the hair and we're not perceiving it as a bright skin underneath there. Why would light be down there where there's basically less light? And so it follows the rules of light. Everything that goes to where there's less light gets darker, and everything that comes to where there's more light gets brighter. So now this flips everything over. Now these remaining white spaces or lighter spaces, whatever we end up with, actually become the color of the hair. So when we're working on a head of hair, we will decide the value by how many strokes we put on. But the other thing is, we don't want to try to get rid of those white spaces in any other way than to dedicate them with an opportunity to see down in between something, and or we don't want to get rid of the texture. We need the texture, because otherwise it becomes like this. As we try and get rid of the white, we end up by saying, oh, there's something wrong and I need to keep trying to put more value, and we don't think about the fact that we need to have depth and dimension, and now it becomes very solid. And we're creating actually a whole nother problem than the one we had in the first place. And it gets very, very frustrating because we just go from one complication to the other, and we end up by having something that just doesn't work. Now, there are ways that we can recover something like this depending on how dark the hair is going to be. We want to be able to show that if it's going around to the darker side, we can add a little more value back there in a few strokes. So now we start having depth and dimension because this is going to where there's less light here. We can have places where maybe the edge of the face, if there is a clean edge there, maybe we're going underneath the hair and we're going back into, by the ear or behind the jaw or way back in there. Well, now we have a place to demonstrate that the hair is in front of this. But we can recover this by adding some more lines and actually creating the spaces, because now instead of the spaces becoming problems, they actually become an advantage if we know how to interpret them. So when we're working with very dark hair, we need to be able to make sure that we don't go so dark that we can't add a few more lines that will allow us to create spaces that will give us the feeling that these are exactly what they need to be, and they're spaces to show depth in the hair. And it shows the texture. So one of the wonderful things about a drawing is that if we create the right kind of contrast, the contrast between values, the contrast between textures, we can separate things so well. If I came out here and I tried to show gradations by just having a bunch of lines, and I was kind of careless of how I'm putting them down, then this would start becoming confusing again, because I don't really have a way to show the difference between the hair and these wonderful soft skin contours and curves. And so I really enjoy being able to go ahead and clarify what we're looking at. But that also goes with us being able to see depth and dimension and the spacing for those white spaces, making sure that you give a quick interpretation. It doesn't have to be too many. It's surprising. I don't have to go into every one of them and do that. I just have to go into maybe 2 or 3, whatever works, and suddenly everything else becomes a highlight. Now, when I am trying to come up with a tone, yes, I have to be able to come up with enough value that I can create maybe a head of hair that has a brown color to it. But it doesn't make any difference which color it is. I can go ahead and create something that is maybe light hair, white hair, platinum blonde, somebody that has gray hair. Anything that's lighter than its surroundings can still be done very well with this by creating some of these spaces so that we know we're looking through something, or that this is actually the high part of the hair, the part that's able to reflect the light. But still, even these little lines here can demonstrate then, because we've done this, all of the remaining lines start now becoming either the color and or spaces. So we're really not drawing hair at all. We're actually drawing the spaces in between the hair. And this is one of the things that becomes really an advantage as well, because now I can come in here with my very soft brush, and I use a camel hair brush. It's a Lang nickel, if any of you are interested in what brush it is. I get the softest brush I can, and I like these flat ones because I can guide where I put the brush and what I'm brushing. But I can take that extra lead, which I put on there, and I need to go back to that. I have extra lead for the most part because I used a softer pencil to do my hair. I don't want to overwork my hair either. So most often what I am going to do is I'm going to use a 2B pencil. And the 2B is soft enough, I may plan my hair out with a 4H or one of the lighter gradations or grades of pencil. And I may decide where I'm going to in the direction of my hair, so that when I go ahead and I make my final strokes for actually creating the hair, I will have a sense of the direction and have it a little bit planned out. But then I'll be able to come back in and actually do this with my 2B pencil. Now, surprisingly, again, this is done with a 2B pencil as well, except I lighten up on the stroke. The pressure is very important. I don't want to be bearing down on the paper so much that I actually score it, and that would be the tendency if you're going to use a lighter grade of pencil. But I like to use the soft one because it not only gives me enough of the value and I can still lighten up on it, but now when I brush it, I cast some value into these areas. And so then I have the opportunity to actually remove something. It's interesting how easy it is to lose track of whether there's value in a place. But when I brush that, I can come back in and actually take out a new highlight, which now becomes one of the bright hairs, one of the light hairs, and what's left, again, is the division between the hairs. You might want to see that a little closer. Let's see if we can just get in a little bit more. And even though this is very simple, it's not a highly detailed drawing, I think you can see the principle that's happening here. And as I put these strokes in here, now because I've made these spaces, I've had the clean edges, I know I'm going past and through the hair, now everything else that's left here can be considered a space in between hairs. Obviously, if I got too carried away and tried to demonstrate every hair, this would just become a solid tone again. And also, I can't erase every single solitary highlight. But there is enough value in here that every time I now remove some value, it can become the highlight. Now, if I felt it was too bright and I wanted to create some depth, I could go ahead and brush it again, brush it all over again. It will be casting some of that extra value into those places, and now I can come back in and I can actually, take out a brand new highlight. It might be something that's going off to another direction, adding some life to your drawing. You don't want to get too carried away with that either, but now I know that this is in front of these other areas that are darker. This is sticking out enough that it's catching the light. And I have a chance now to actually create a little more depth because I know that something is out in front of the rest of it. And I have a chance to take it out because I brushed that value in there. So this is still very simple. Let's get a little farther out so we can see. This is very simple, but it still demonstrates it makes no difference what color of hair. You can lighten up with your stroke and use your 2B pencil, and you'll still be able to brush that value into the spaces that you haven't put a stroke in so that they don't become overworked and become solid. The solid hair is one of the other big frustrations when you're trying to do something that's darker and you don't think about using the opportunity to create texture. Let's see if we can get a little closer on this. You can see the strands of hair. And we want those because that is going to give us the realism, the texture, and all those things that are so important. And it gives us the opportunity to regulate how dark we are maybe on one side because it gets darker as it goes around the other side there. And then we can also have the opportunity to darken something up if we need to and create even more depth. Maybe our light direction is from this way, and so over here it's going to where there's less light. That rule of light works all the way through anything you're drawing. If you can establish your light direction and understand that everything is going to be a little darker, doesn't mean it's going to be very dark, but it is a little darker because it is going to where there's less and less light. So when I get to these places, these are places where there is less light in between, deep in the thick parts of her hair and or his. And it's the same thing over here. We just do less. I know this isn't real detailed, but there's many opportunities to just be a little more careful and refine it a little more. And we can now have even the minimal amount of strokes we use on something like this have a lot of depth and realism because we're showing dimension and depth and using those clean edges properly. Now, if I went ahead and I did a gradation and I did not care, I'm going to sharpen my pencil quick here. I did not think about the spaces. I would end up by starting to join everything together. When we're looking anywhere, whether it's in your house or outside or off in the distance at the hills, we see things like trees in front of stuff. We see buildings in front of things. We see doorways in front of our yard, as we look out from our house. We see everything. Our minds are immediately searching for that clean edge. Now the thing is, again, a line doesn't say much of anything. It's possible that I could have something that might come out into the perimeter of a drawing, and now I will use a line against white, and it's because it's silhouetted. It's suggesting it's silhouetted against its background. But you'll notice that when it gets over into here, it's now white. And so the contrast is really important, and there's very few times, again, that we're going to end up leaving a line just like this. So what will happen is we will come in and sometimes try to join everything together. I better go back to my 2B pencil. If I expect this to look like a head of hair, just by coloring in a space, it's going to cause as much frustration as those white spaces did because we don't see the texture. We have no way of creating depth. And we just are showing that we totally overworked the hair, and yet I'm not near as dark as I want to be. And so if I come back in here or I try to cover up the texture that's happening here, I'm going to press harder and I'm going to create more value of the same. I'm trying to get all this stuff out of the way. I got to get color in there. This is a dark hair. And so what's happening is I'm actually making it solid. And every time I have something soft, I am going to create a contour. And it's going to be attached to what it's next to. So this is what happens. We no longer have a way to go in between anything. We're just showing maybe a little bit of an indentation, but it's a contour because we can see in and out of it. And those are things that I usually want to stay away from when I'm drawing hair. Overall, I might show that a place is darker, and so over the texture, I might create something that's going to suggest that it's getting darker, just like we did with this. But overall, I want to show that this is getting a little bit darker and a little bit darker as we go farther and farther away from the light. And any highlight I have over here would turn out to be probably a little brighter and a little brighter until we've regulated that, the place where the light is hitting here the most is going to be the brightest, and our minds can perceive this because we're always wrapping hair around a round head. And so we want to be able to suggest that, and light again is one of the ways we're going to be able to do it. But we still want to be able to have lines to demonstrate that there's spaces in between the hair. And we can depend on our brushes to keep from having to draw too much. Really, hair can be quite simple often. Sometimes it's surprising at how quickly it can go on because I'm lessening the opportunity or the need to come in there and create value in all these places because I have my brush to help fill in some of those areas. And it becomes, again, a wonderful opportunity for me to have something to remove so that I have a highlight. And then I have the chance to show, it could even be colored hair that's streaked. It could be a highlight. It could be something else. But I have the chance to regulate it. If it turned out it was too bright, then I can come back in here and I can lay a little value on it, or I can brush it once again. And it's just really forgiving. I enjoy hair. Hair is so much fun when you start understanding the way that we need to allow our brains so that we can interpret what we see. And it's really interesting how quickly we can create something really just the opposite of the way our minds are searching for information. And the information we're giving it is actually creating, like I said, a negative or something that's quite contrary to what is actually going to be the most beneficial. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to address a couple of those things, and maybe it'll help you start looking at what you've been doing, seeing if you can recognize some of these situations and solve a few of those problems, and that will help you to start feeling better about the hair, realizing that you have every bit of ability to make it dynamic, make it dimensional, and really have it be a complement to your portrait. Now, there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about with hair. Again, most of them, follow the principles that, are so important, things that I've laid down in the core concepts. But the hair DVD, addresses many of these things, including perspective and, how the hair grows out of the head, what directions might be advantageous to you, how we can get depth in blonde hair, how we can do curly and straight. But anyway, I think that this is probably still one of the simplest things that I see causing problems, and yet it's so simple that it can be easily handled and interpreted different. So I hope this helped you a little bit, and look forward to talking to you again, and hope you have more fun with your drawing. We'll see you.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We just wanted to take a minute here and let you know that this does not have to be the end of your hair drawing education. As Darrel mentioned, he covers these skills demonstrated in tonight's event, plus many more in his How to Draw Hair series. If frustrations from drawing hair have ever left you wanting to just rip your own out, this series is going to be a welcome relief. In it, Darrel shares the many tips and tricks he's learned over his long career as an artist, and he really helps you to start changing the way you think about drawing hair. And plus, he uses over 20 different types of hair, styles, and colors to really drive the point home. This series is special. Thousands of students have discovered how much fun it can be to add what we call the crowning achievement to their drawings thanks to How to Draw Hair. And now, with just 2 more days before How to Draw Hair bids farewell to the 5 Pencil Method store, we're going to make it easier and more affordable than ever to add it to your collection. If you click on the button below, you can get How to Draw Hair for 50% off the regular price. And you can even set up a payment plan and bring it home for just $14.99 down today. But again, the time is short, and this isn't something you just want to wait around on till the last minute to get your copy. And remember, just like all 5 Pencil Method lessons, You have an entire year to test drive How to Draw Hair. If you decide that you don't love it, you can just send it back and we'll refund every penny, no questions asked. So with a guarantee like that and just $14.99 down today, the only risk you face is not giving it a shot. But remember, after that, How to Draw Hair won't even be available in the 5-Pencil Method store. So don't miss out. Click on the button below to learn more and get your order in the mail. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great night and have fun drawing.